Mamdani. Everyone's freaking out. Is this justifiable, or is this guy like a Republican boogeyman? It's not going to be that bad. We'll get through it. Or is
Well,
it, the end of the world?
it's not. He had a perfect right to run for office, and so that's who our system is. And I have no beef with him. I thought he ran a good campaign. But
Okay.
the guy should tell the truth. He's a communist, all right? He wants to, quote, seize the means of production. If you understand what communism is, which is a government that forcibly takes private property, all right, and then distributes it to people that it wants to, but you don't have any rights. You are to do what the state tells you to do. That's communism. That's what he is. Now, he's not going to be able to get that into motion in New York State because he's got to go through the state legislature and all of that. But the fact that people don't understand who he is and are buying this nonsense about, I'm going to give you this and that I'm going to do and this I'm going to do. In 4 years, he's going to do a lot of damage to the city. I can't predict exactly how, although I can tell you the police despise him. And that is not going to lead to improved public safety for anyone. Okay? And that's a fact. But unintended consequences are going to come out of him not wanting to punish criminals, even violent criminals. He doesn't want to punish them. He wants to close the prisons. He wants to send social workers to domestic disturbances. You know how dangerous they are, Jillian? You ask any police officer anywhere, your likelihood of being killed if you're a cop is much higher in a domestic disturbance, and you're going to send social workers in there?
Right.
I mean, this is the kind of stuff that if you listen to him and you know the world, you know stuff, you go, that's not going to happen. But the people who voted for him, more than 1 million, many of them are really living in a bubble world. They really don't know what it's all about. And he came across as a much more viable candidate than Cuomo or Sliwa.
Right. Okay. So I have questions about all of the things you just mentioned. I've watched the crowd at his rally, his acceptance speech, and they're chanting, "Tax the rich."
Yeah.
Buses will be fast and free. Freeze the rent. Like, it was just, they were in this state of like everything is free. This is what we want. There's a bizarre entitlement that these voters have. I don't understand. I get it. And I've heard the whole talk. Capitalism isn't working for young people. How can we all pander to young people? But I'm starting to feel like that is what's happening because Hochul, initially I thought said, I'm not going to allow him to tax the rich more. They're over 50% of the budget we have for New York, their tax dollars. And now I'm hearing that she is going to let him tax the rich and is going to let him bring in a corporate tax that I guess is from 7 to 11% that comes from New Jersey because they're going to primary her if she doesn't allow this. So who decides what the tax rates are? Is it the governor or is it Mamdani? That's question one. And then do you think if it is the governor that these kids can pressure her into making this decision?
Well, the legislature in Albany has to decide whether there's a tax rise on income or profits, not Mamdani. He doesn't have that power. What Mamdani can do is charge you more for Broadway tickets, which he will, or parking, or games, or hot dogs, or whatever it may be. There's a New York City tax on this, New York City tax on that, and so you're going to get that. Consumer's going to get just hammered. And the people that voted for Mamdani, they believe that the wealthy are bad.
Right.
But that's always been in play. That's how the Russian Revolution happened. That's how Cuba lost all freedom and Castro came in. Mamdani very much like Castro. And now Cuba is the second worst, most impoverished nation in the Western Hemisphere behind Haiti. And that's what? Been 75 years of poverty there. So it never works anywhere. But as far as Mamdani is concerned, he's got to propose what he wants to do. It goes then to Albany. They vote on it. Now, Hochul could veto any of it and said that she isn't going to raise taxes. But as you pointed out, the lieutenant governor of New York is going to primary her, and he's a left-wing loon too. And he'll run to her left. But if Hochul allows any tax rises on anything, she will lose to Elise Stefanik, who's going to run against her next November. I think Elise is going to beat her anyway. Hochul is a weak governor. Her approval numbers are terrible. And Mamdani is going to make them even worse.
Okay. All right. That's encouraging, because after the elections last week, I just thought there's no hope in a blue state for a red mayor, red governor. It was a wipeout. You think Stefanik has a chance in New York?
Sure, because New York is not doesn't tell the tale for the whole entire state. I live about 5 miles east of New York City, the Queens border, and my county, Nassau, went all red.
Okay.
100%, because they were rebelling against Mamdani.
Right.
And, my home, since Mamdani announced he was running, is up 20% in value. Because people are leaving the city, going to the suburbs, getting out of the city limits, because it's A, too dangerous, P, the taxation on anybody making a decent living is onerous and punishing. And so you're going to be left with a bunch of people who don't want to compete. The real commonality of a socialist communist, we don't want to compete. We don't want to do what it takes to succeed in a capitalistic system. It takes hard work. It takes, you got to be very persistent. It takes education. It takes developing a skill set. They don't want to do that.
Right.
You just give me mine. Guaranteed income. This kind of stuff. Well, it's always been that way, but in New York City, with about half of the voters being born overseas, now you have a movement to get into this socialism, communism area.